Good afternoon and welcome to the Day After Podcast and our sub-show Pixar Sunday, where we watch and review every Pixar film in chronological order. Strap in, because we just watched and reviewed 2017's Coco, directed by Lee Unkrich in his second and final film with Pixar 2 years before he retired after 25 years.
This movie could have sucked.
Go on.
This could have been just a very simple, dumb, pandering to a different culture, cookie-cutter bullshit that had no effort, and people were gonna go see it because it's an... And I remember at the Oscars, when this movie won Best Animated Feature, I believe, of how the director was like, oh, finally kids can see characters in films that look like them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, if that's how you're going on, this movie could have sucked.
This is going to be an almost exclusively positive podcast. We'll try our best. So let me get the shit show of a production out of the way quickly, because I think while Pixar had the best intentions, the very early pre-production was kind of fraught with a little bit of struggle.
Which even adds more to my point. This could have sucked.
Yes, originally they wanted this movie to be called Day of the Dead, which is an interesting, it's a very safe title, very informative title. However, for the purposes of making that a film title, they attempted to trademark the phrase Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead, and people did not like that. A company owned by Disney, who is already incredibly litigious, was not okay with them attempting to trademark an incredibly important Mexican heritage holiday, to the point where a political cartoonist drew a 10-foot zombie Mickey Mouse terrorizing a city with the phrase written up top, "They're coming for your cultura."
Oh, Jesus.
They're coming to take everything away from you to make a movie about it. It could have tanked.
It could have sucked.
I'm gonna Google it while we do the podcast. I think this might be the best performing animated film in Mexico, if not of all film.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, I worked at the casino when this movie came out 3 years ago. Wow, 3 years ago. We're almost done. And my buddy Raul, he worked there. And he goes, "Hey man, I just got back from Coco. How was it?" Brother, you fucking have to.
You have to go see
He
this.
might have actually said fucking, because his movie's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and it's shocking. I was telling John, again with I don't mean to praise the movie for being something that it's not. I'm not praising the movie for not sucking. This movie's amazing and it's incredible, and we'll go into why here in a minute, but it's just how close this could have been. The fact that so many people who are of this heritage enjoy this movie and are just so enthralled by this movie. And it's so cool to see a culture represented and not made fun of. We're not saying taco every third word.
I believe that the most important, when you're attempting a representation of any kind, even if let's be honest, this movie was made to make money. Let's be fair.
Yeah.
What I appreciate the most, Brother Bear did this really well. Like they did this with the Native American culture also. The Spanish family is shitty to each other.
Yeah, they kind of like...
The deceased relatives are assholes to one another, but they love each other.
Yeah, and it's no family is perfect. You fight with your siblings, you fight with your cousins, you fight with your... you fight with members of your family, and let's not pretend that that's not a thing that happens.
It is not, and the family is the internal struggle driving this really tight, streamlined narrative. Holy cow.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me, from somebody who did not grow up in a big family, how huge Miguel's family is and what a support structure he has, both living and non. There's characters constantly surrounding the Riviera household that don't get names. There's 2 kids running in the lawn. There's his girl cousin. There's the older cousin making shoes. He's a couple uncles and aunts there. Some of them get names, some of them don't, but that doesn't matter. You just constantly feel him surrounded but by these people who really care about him, but who also have this very, very specific way of looking at the world.
The focus on the Rivera family is so we spent time correctly. There are these extended people who all get maybe one line each when they're kind of elaborating on Miguel's dream to be a musician, and put him in the back.
Yeah,
not the focus. I mean, we're gonna focus on the matriarch, and more on the dead. It's about a film about people relating to death.
Yeah, and yeah, it's fascinating to see a culture of what it is, being from the United States, we're more familiar with Mexican American culture, not Mexican culture.
Okay.
Which is a small, subtle difference, but it's nice to to drop you into this little into this Mexican town, and and you go see the plaza, and you see this good, beautiful architecture everywhere, both in the living world and in the deceased world. Which brings us to our the first Yahoo for this movie. It's just gorgeous.
This movie is absolutely beautiful. The general idea was that even if Mexican culture, which is not in terms of finding beauty in the world, it's not a highly recognized culture in terms of nice animation and a really rich folklore that it is there. And I know that we live in kind of an Anglo-centric country.
Yeah, and I think that's more of where we live. I think that's more of a product of your opinion more than Mexican culture is not celebrated. It totally is.
It absolutely is.
We just lived in extreme white boy territory.
But the animators wanted on a scale of saturation, if the land of the living is a 5, the land of the dead is a 25.
Yeah.
It's nothing but neon, bright lights everywhere.
Yeah, and again, it ties into how this culture actually views these specific parts that Miguel travels through. There's marigolds everywhere. That's actually a flower of the Day of the Dead. There's everything is so brightly decorated, and that papel picado, I think.
We had to Google. So the
little paper banners and the animation they do with them is just amazing.
As a storytelling device, that's off the chain. They didn't have to do that, but they did.
Yeah, it's just really pretty to look at. Every single frame, you're just absolutely engrossed in everything that's going on. It uses deep focus really, really well. Its texture mapping is just awesome. It's so cool.
Let's continue to praise the animators. Yes, how are our dailies going on the animation department? We're struggling with pre-production. Oh, is something not going together? We don't know how to emote skeletons. Well, crap.
And there's such little details where the more this is the anti-Wreck-It Ralph, where the more you watch it, the better it gets. I'm constantly noticing things in this movie, even though I've seen it quite a few times now, that I haven't seen before. One of the things I love is the little designs on all the skulls.
They do, the little visual embellishments.
Yeah, and some of them are very subtle, very undershaded, and some of them are really bright and colorful, like in Hector's. And they don't make a lot of the skeleton jokes, like, oh, isn't it funny that my head pops off? No, my arm pops off.
You get an eyes popping out, you get a jaw dropping, that's fair.
Well, and they linger on those jokes once, and then these things constantly happen, but it doesn't do a DreamWorks thing of, look, I made a joke, please praise me.
In the same way that somebody, the practice of punching up a script, making verbal jokes that scan better. The animation is visually punching up movement. Mm-hmm. It's causing people to walk in a way to bring attention to itself. Hands come off. There are visual gags that don't draw attention to each other, just to fill out this movie, while streamlined, is pretty dense, but it's not fat. So to keep up with that narrative, we have to have this manic, really well animated motion to keep up with that.
Yeah, and you can't, even when it makes those head popping off jokes, you can't linger on that too long. There's too much movie to get to. This movie is dense without being fat, and it's really, really nice.
I'm shocked that we're gonna go from this to Incredibles 2, because Incredibles 2 feels fat.
We gotta see it again.
No, we gotta see it again. That's not here. Why don't you think this is a fat movie?
Because there's no part of this movie where I'm like, you could take that out and the narrative would make sense. Or the narrative would have the same emotional impact.
I can't think of a scene that goes on more than 20 seconds that can be taken out.
Yeah, this movie does not have a short runtime. It's an hour and it's
105 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not a huge runtime, but it's quite lengthy, especially for a kids movie. And so it's constantly got to keep up. But my issue with a lot of what I call fat movie is that it's just bouncing from story beat to story beat to story beat to story beat without ever bothering to connect of why all of these fit together. This movie doesn't do that. Why? Okay, so Miguel goes into the dead world. Oh, he's got to find his family. Found his family. gotta have blessing, but my great grandmother doesn't want me to play music, so I have to go find who I think this person's my great grandmother. It's like it just constantly flows of I need to do this, so then I do this, and then we do that, and then we say, okay, next time I need to do this, and so we go do this.
And
I need a guitar. Let's go talk to this guy, and now we've explained a thing of this world.
We've explained the curse and gotten out of the way of the curse because the eccentricities, the logistical workings of this, the link between the land of the living and the land of the dead, this marigold bridge and all the bureaucracy exists, is not important.
Yeah.
It's a family movie first and a bureaucracy movie second.
Well, yeah, and it's shorthand. You know, that border crossing
exactly
is you know what that is. You see it, you get the function, we move on.
Okay. This movie has a lot to do with memory, and I not inside out memory, but the idea that we are just a collection of thoughts.
Yeah.
And our transiency as human beings.
And the way we react to the people with our memories, and especially with the people that came before us, has a dramatic impact constantly on how we live our daily lives.
You brought up that kind of what Miguel is doing at the beginning is a little shitty.
Yeah.
Even before the mausoleum. Let me just space that.
Yeah, so this entire time, all of his family is getting ready. They're putting things on the ofrenda, they're finishing up work, they're scattering out marigolds, they're cooking tamales, or whatever they need to be doing to make this a family holiday. And Miguel says, I want to go to the plaza and do my thing. And in any other kids movie, you're like, oh my gosh, why isn't Miguel's family supporting him? They're so rude. And with how just beautifully told this family unit is, because again, it's not shy about saying like, oh, family members don't get along all the time. I mean, several people get beaten with a shoe. And I love those little cultural dewdrops that are like, that they're there without being like, oh, aren't we super culturally sensitive, and also not ignoring the fact that like sometimes racism is a thing.
Oh shit, grandma's got the sandal. Fucking move.
And everybody's just like, crap. Nope.
This movie is like, what? You telling me like decades of kids films haven't learned to meet their parents halfway?
Yeah.
Guys, come on.
And what the best part though is Miguel learns that what he was doing was shitty. It's not like, oh, his family comes around and he's like, oh, now that you feel bad for me, of course I'll feel bad for you. But no, he looks back at his actions the way kids need to do when they grow up, and it's like, oh, that was not a good thing I did.
And I can't quit praising how tight the script is, because as you learn that the decision to extricate the family from the dad who pursued music, it comes as little narrative dewdrops that are there to bring the story along. It's not as if somebody had amnesia and then is just remembering things Finding Dory style as they become relevant.
Yeah, and the fact that, Hector left the family, like, little bits of that story and little remembrances are trickled throughout this narrative. And so when you do get that great payoff in the lake, where Miguel realizes that Hector is his great-great-grandfather, or great-grandfather, I can't remember which one, but that's so much more poignant because you were constantly reminded, but it wasn't beat into your head.
What is shocking is that the narrative tightness of this and the lack of fat results in the realization that they are related coming out of nowhere. We were so busy. This movie wants you to realize that these two people that have met in the Day of the Dead, never in the living, are only using each other to satisfy each other's ends. It never comes up that they might possibly be related, and it feels genuine and it feels earned. I'm going to take a side step to praise this movie for not succumbing to sad fetishism like Pixar does so well. This movie is a sad movie.
Yes.
But it's a celebration, not a sad fetish hour.
Yeah. The emotion that it has is really genuine. It's not trying to make a sad beat to sell tickets.
Whew. There's a meme out there. I'm not gonna find it. It says, "Everybody gangster till he starts playing Remember Me."
Okay, so yeah, that ending scene with Coco and the music. Oh, sorry, I wanted to say avoid sad fetishism. Before we get to the ending scene.
Please do.
This movie also does a twist villain correctly.
Oh cow!
Which is that fucking mythical creature,
guys,
in today's world,
okay.
especially in Disney.
Here's what I felt. Okay, here we go. They couldn't put a villain in Finding Dory, so they said, Incredibles 2, twist villain. Lotso, twist villain. They're all over the place.
Yeah,
Frozen.
Yeah. Frozen is not a Pixar property, but that's one of the worst twist villains I've ever seen.
And we are in the middle of a bit of a glut, in film, when something comes and goes like a trend, and we happen to be deep into the twist villain territory when this came out.
And to see it done well, to see this done like, oh my gosh, Miguel idolizes this guy, he thinks he's related, and we like over and over we talk about how celebrated he is, and then he's actually a fucking psychopath.
You, an hour into the movie, you're like, hey, how do you feel about Ernesto de la Cruz? Fucking love him.
Yeah. He's awesome. Yeah,
he's cold and hardcore. He wanted to, maybe he thought that he was in the wrong when he poisoned the guy, but now that he's famous in the land of the dead where nobody leaves, we're stuck here until we get forgotten. This is all I have.
Yes. Well, and it's important for him to be remembered in the living world as well. I mean, you see that mausoleum that's so elaborately decorated. And this life that he built, this thing that he stands on is really important to him, and that's the only thing that matters.
It's so unapologetically cold, but we focus on it exactly as much as we need. When you look at the remember spot where we are being filled in on what really happened between Ernesto and Hector, there's a scene where he's got a very pained face, and he says, I'm please stay with me. And then as he finds out that he can't, a wave of indifference kind of washes over his face.
Yeah.
And he puts on just the creepiest, well, at least have a drink with me.
Yeah, and he pretty much has that face the rest of the movie.
He does, that's fine. The drink scene also, when we learn the stakes of being forgotten in this world.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And that hits you really hard. This character that we have no connection to, that we just met.
Chincharon? Oh my god.
And then you're just like, ugh.
That's what happened. You know what I love the most is that when music and memory are the two big things here. And when he sees this guy Chincharon, who we never met, but the way they talk to each other, even as he's about to die, they're still bitching each other out. And when you ask, I apologize, when you go over, do you have any requests? You want to play a cute song? No, play me that song about the ugly lady. You know I love that song. That's so precious.
Yeah, and it's a really cool camaraderie of these kind of gaggle of misfits who they don't have a friend as. They don't have any family left who remembers them. So we call each other cousin and aunt and this, and we've made our own family. And that's a legitimate way also to build families, is to do it that way.
And even when we are succumbing to final death, it's not even dark. The skeleton shimmers before it disappears.
Yeah.
It's just a reinforcement of this culture that celebrates death, even though you still have to become aware of it and live in that world. Welcome to Pixar Mainstays, where we talk about elements of Pixar films that appear very frequently. Because John Ratzenberger was not sure he could pull off a Mexican accent, he has a one-word line as Juan Ortodoncia, a skeleton with bad teeth crossing the border near the beginning-ish of the movie.
Yep.
The Bureau of Family Grievances, in the bureaucratic zone where you meet the matriarch in the first place, their office number is A113, similar to Sterling from Cars 3. And what am I forgetting? The Pizza Planet truck shows up real quick, left to right, as you're zooming in on the Zapateras family.
Yeah, you see it immediately, but it's quite obvious what it is.
No, we know what it is, but thanks for sticking it out, guys. Oh man, I don't know where to go. We've been doing nothing but spinning for 20 minutes.
No. So there's stuff to talk about. We're fine. Before we go into final thoughts, I do want to talk about the final scene. I do want to give just because I want to talk about that final scene, I want to give a nod to the animal designs. The spirit guides designs, which are so freaking cool.
In general or Dante?
In general.
Yeah, the neon serves them really well.
Yeah, it's a neat way to take that, and it's a way to add cool animal sidekicks that have a lot of personality, even though they don't talk.
They did a really good job keeping you on the fence about whether he was an alebrije.
Yeah.
It's like, I think he might be a spirit dude. And
he's like, or maybe he's just a dog.
Maybe he's an idiot. This dog is animated like an idiot. Yeah. I love this dog and his stupid face.
It's so funny.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that final scene, everybody cries at the Mama Coco scene, and where the family all comes together. That's fine. And yes, of course I cry. As many times I've seen this movie, which it's got to be at least 4 or 5, still cry at that scene. It's beautiful. The one that punches me in the gut,
yes,
is the scene right after that, where it's a year later on Dia de los Muertos, and you see all of these characters that Miguel has met. And again, I didn't come from a big family. I didn't come from a very affectionate family. To see that really awesome, legitimate connection that they have there, that is what gets me.
The family connection?
Yeah. Well, and all these ghosts lingering around the Riviera household, and Hector fucking lifts the guitar out of his great-grandson's
I don't mean to put these things on the same plane at all, so take what I have with a massive, just fistful of salt. I love Aqua Teen Hunger Force to death because it so definitely mixes the magical with the mundane. This is a family that's just eating together. Mm-hmm. And eating is just, it's important in so many cultures, Mexican culture especially, to just be together. That's a magic in its own.
And you're not gonna get along with them all the time. You're not even gonna like them all the time. But it's still important, and there's still a very good connection there, and your family is important whether they are living or dead.
It's important. I respect the visual shorthand of putting Mama Coco's photo on the ofrenda for the first time, yes. Noting what happened to her. I will bow to a comment I saw on the internet that says, yeah, usually it's not a celebratory thing the first time you put somebody's photo on the ofrenda.
Yeah, it's quite... Yeah.
But I was already riding high on emotions there that killed me.
Well, they do give it a somber moment while Miguel is standing there with his new baby sister and his grandmother. They do have a nice little somber moment, but...
shout out to Michael Giacchino. They brought him on board to work on Ratatouille. He's the musical director, by the way. And he has been working with Pixar on and off ever since, and he has destroyed the soundtrack. It is fantastic. God,
it's so good. Every song is so good.
Yeah, and he is mixing, because that end song begins somber as they kind of move into it gently, and that mix works really well. You wouldn't think you'd be able to do that, but it flows nice. This whole movie flows like melted butter.
We should probably move into final thoughts.
Yes, we should. Let's begin.
So again, I love this movie. It gets better literally every single time I watch it. When you really like something, you should criticize its flaws, and I consistently can't find any. Not that I'm looking too hard for them, mind you. I love representations of cultures, and I love representations of cultures that are not making fun of it, that they're not appropriation, that they just exist in their own world, and we're not cutting jokes all the time. We're not like, oh, isn't it funny that Mexican families do this? No, this is a real good, legitimate thing that they do, and it's wholesome and awesome.
People have repeatedly told me, I am shocked how good the representation is. The people have been saying repeatedly, it's on point, it's scary. But beyond that, I could take out the Mexican culture. I know that's silly to how emotionally ingrained it is, but it's narratively, it is one of the tightest movies I've ever seen. People like to praise Back to the Future for being the perfect screenplay. It's been touted because it flows so nice, it's so tight, it's so compact. This movie is up there. It is so streamlined. It's been workshopped 85,000 times, I feel like. They've been storyboarding the hell out of it. In the middle of such an extreme scene, like even the goofiness of Frida Kahlo's coming out of the papaya, I'm shocked at how well they can keep this moving and keep this really vibrant world from feeling dull or having patches that maybe need shoe-shined a little bit. I had a fantastic time. I apologize we didn't say enough negatives. That has been Pixar Sunday, where we watched and reviewed Coco. Please join us in 2 weeks for Incredibles 2, first we have to take a week off to actually go look at some more Pixar shorts.
Yay!
Well, we're not worried about ranking things. We can just settle down a little bit.
Are we done with the Mater ones?
No.
Darn it.
But thank you for joining us.